Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7, and this is going to be my review for episode 14 for this season. 14? Yeah, 14. 14? Yeah, 14 for this season, otherwise entitled Rayo de Luz, I think that's how you pronounce it, which translates to light ray, I think, from Spanish. So, yeah. But of course, if you've not watched the episode, go away, spoilers, even though there's really nothing to spoil from this episode. It is pretty much the straight up most filler episode you could think of, even though it shouldn't be a filler episode, and I'll explain why. But yeah, let me know your various thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm sure you'll have opinions about this episode, whether they're positive or negative. I'm very curious to hear what they are. And yeah, if you're going to enjoy the video, just want to show your support despite what this episode was, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it, show support for the channel and future Flash episodes. So last episode was the Cecile episode, which really focused on Cecile's past and sort of moving on and everything like that, which I thought was a good episode. It was just poorly placed throughout the season. And that episode itself is also a filler episode, even though you could have made that episode and not made it a filler episode by putting it with like Psych, for example, in the first half, which would have been extremely relevant and not filler because he was a part of the main story at the beginning half of the season. So poorly placed. And then we followed with this episode, which once again is a very poorly placed episode. And look, we'll talk about when we get to it. Okay. So just, I'm a very optimistic person, and I don't nitpick things as well. And I feel a lot of stuff you see with not just The Flash, you'll see with other shows as well, is that people will nitpick and stuff like that. And I will call it out when there's a major issue with an episode. And this episode is like, I think the biggest issue that I've seen with an episode this season. I sort of almost like a lack of understanding how to run the show, if that makes sense, and we'll discuss it. But anyway, we do start off the episode with Ultraviolet versus Allegra. We knew that was pretty much the basis for the episode. It was an Allegra-based episode taking on Ultraviolet, her cousin, Esperanza. And Allegra's like begging her not to do something, but that event is actually happening 12 hours later. So it's one of those typical, we lead up to that moment. I don't know why they did that this episode. I don't think they needed to do that. I think maybe it's just the way they wanted to structure it. I'm not too sure. But this is a classic episode of where you wouldn't do that. I don't know why they did that, actually, to be completely honest, but they decided to go down that route. But this is where the issues start to lie. So we had Barry and Iris, and specifically, because, like, no offense to Iris or pretty much any other character, the only character that really matters that we need in the show, especially this episode specifically, is Barry. But Barry and Iris go on vacation to somewhere in the Indian Ocean. I don't know if they specifically said where. They're going to somewhere tropical just to have some fun. So it's an excuse for Barry not to be in this episode and to just specifically be in Central City. And that's where the issue lies. This is an episode where Barry needed to be in it. This is a episode where a member of Team Flash, Allegra, is being, even though Allegra is like Team Citizen, she goes out in the field with Team Flash. She's a member of Team Flash, even if it's part-time. And this is an episode where that character is being developed. Why is Barry not in an episode where a Team Flash character is being developed? He's their leader. Who made that executive decision? What the hell was going on there? Last episode with Cecile, if they really wanted Grant Gustin to have a break and Barry to not be in an episode, last episode was the episode to do it. He didn't have to be in that Cecile episode. That could have just been Cecile. And they could have done everything they did there. Barry was just a passenger. He didn't have to be in that episode. So why didn't they just not have him in that episode, then have him in this episode where he should have been in it? It's weird. I'm not too sure why they did it. But anyway, he's away. So he shows up at the end, and that's about it. But one of the storylines that kept going through and wasn't really interrupted by the weird structuring of this episode and just placement of this episode was the Joe storyline. So Joe and Cecile are still looking into the Kristen Kramer issue, and we actually learn of another figure whose name is Adam Craik. I think that's the way you pronounce it. Who Kristen had like an off-the-record conversation with back in her day, and he was the person who actually sent Kramer and the other troops into that suicide mission. Now we learn more about what's happening at the end, but there is just some interesting stuff going on with Kristen and Joe in this episode in general, which we'll talk about. Now, with the Allegra storyline, Allegra gets like a hot tip that her cousin Esperanza, aka Ultraviolet, is back in Central City after like a tour de crime, I guess you could call it, across cities like Metropolis and Opal City before getting to Central City. Now, Allegra hopes to reconnect with her and like fix their broken relationship and potentially stop her criminal side. And this is pretty much just based off the way that Esperanza was with Allegra when they were younger. Sure, what's happened to her or Ultraviolet now is bad and has turned into a villain, everything like that. But Allegra remembers the younger versions of themselves and the role that Esperanza played in her life. So she's trying to pretty much tap into that side, which other characters in like that are helping Allegra don't understand. So you can sort of see where Allegra's coming from in this episode, even though I think she makes some silly decisions here and there, and no one really helps her out with it. I think it's like sort of no one hits that right balance. You either have like Sue, who's completely against it and just wants to ditch it, and Chester, who's like just willing to do anything. There's no one in that middle area, which I think could have been Barry, to be completely honest. But anyway, Ultraviolet attacks Allegra while they're at Jitters, but Sue arrives in time to help, with Ultraviolet actually being the reason that she decided to stick around. So I guess that makes sense. Like, I guess we're wondering sort of why she was just like, oh, having a vacation in Central City. Like, what the hell? So this makes sense why she did stick around. Now we actually get to dive into a bit of like Ultraviolet's past and what happened to her. So Sue and Allegra are able to stop Ultraviolet using it's like an ultra photon grenade, special grenade thing that neutralizes her powers, whatever it was. And we learned that she was actually hunting down the doctor that changed her into what she is. And we learned that Ultraviolet's voice box was actually cut out. Now, I'm guessing she uses her powers to speak, because I don't think it's a mental thing. I think she just uses her powers to speak, I think. Anyway, due to this like horrific backstory that Allegra wasn't aware of, she wants to help Ultraviolet hunt the doctor down, which actually does lead into a decent scene, which I didn't like. I thought this was actually one of the positive scenes in the episode in regards to this storyline, is that Ultraviolet was teaching Allegra how to use her powers and how to harness her powers a bit better. It doesn't really work, and like Ultraviolet sort of says she's sort of useless to Team Flash because she can't get it done. But overall, it was still good to dive into that type of stuff. But Sue's warning about Ultraviolet sort of plays out as she almost kills Chester, and well, she bails. So yeah, not the best. Now, one thing I was sort of surprised with was seeing Kramer is now interim captain of the CCPD. I was like, oh, okay, you just walked into that position, okay. But Joe brings his intel in order to get her side of the story, which she sort of like quickly like just jumps up and is like super defensive, which means she's got something to hide, obviously. So she's not really hiding it that well. Now, I did notice she was reading a file on the Mist from season 1. So I was wondering, is she maybe looking over the metahumans that the Flash has taken down, you know, in regards to what she's trying to do in Central City? Very curious as to why she was doing that, or maybe she was just catching up on what's happened, because the Mist was like the second villain, I think, that the Flash took on back in season 1 after the first Weather Wizard, so that's a bit of a flashback. Now, one thing that was fairly interesting is that we do actually learn that Sue's parents were too far gone and changed by Black Hole by the time that she got to them, which is why Sue thinks that Ultraviolet is pretty much a lost cause, which, once again, you can understand that motive, but I think they were just sort of putting that in there to make it seem why Sue was so, you know, against Allegra, you know, like where you had like the black and the white. There was no grey area, which Barry should have been. Now, Chester's able to track Ultraviolet to this like weird warehouse where it felt like we were in like a Saw or Hostel movie. I was like, who's getting tortured? Like, who's getting tortured next? But we see that the doctor who messed with Ultraviolet is there and ready. Now, Allegra and Sue go there to, well, help, and we learn that the doctor has actually given Ultraviolet like the proposition, if you want to call it, to give her voice back if she kills everyone that knows what he is up to. So he pretty much has a clean record outside of, I guess, of Ultraviolet knowing. And even then, who knows? She could do that, and then in the operation thing, he could just, you know, slit her throat and kill her. You know, who knows what he's going to do. Now, the Ultraviolet versus Allegra fight was okay. Like, I don't think the fight scene, like, there was nothing like to, you know, write home about. But Allegra like unlocks her full power, if you want to call it. Now, the effects looked really cool. It's like, oh god, like they did look really, really cool. And we did see that Caitlin has files on Ultraviolet, like, you know, in regards to like X-rays and stuff, which do open the door to possibly fixing Ultraviolet and reversing what the doctor did to her. So we know that Ultraviolet is in at least, I think she's in episode 15, episode 16. I think they're going to be like really minimal side stories, and it's pretty much just her recovering, I guess, or like them doing that. I'm not too sure. We know she's in those episodes. Hopefully she's not in too much of it, just because I don't think she's overly relevant unless they really need her there for some reason to develop Allegra a bit more, but they could have done that in this one episode. They had enough time. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Now, a door that gets opened in this episode is when Joe meets with Kramer, who, you know, she opens up and reveals that Adam Craig and her actually grew up together. Like, she calls him her brother, even though they're not like biologically brothers, brother and sister. And we learned that he was actually trying to talk her out of that mission as he felt it was suspicious. And this is just to protect solely her. But Kristen went ahead with it anyway, and she takes the blame of what happened to all these people dying. There's all these families that don't have their sons and everything, or daughters, whoever they might be. Though she didn't know, what was coming. Like she didn't know that there was going to be this like ambush or everything like that. So Kramer wants, you know, Joe to help her hunt down Adam, which I thought was fairly interesting. So this is going to be that Joe storyline that's going on. And I'm interested to see where it goes and if it is overly relevant. That's what I'm really curious about, because I love a mystery and I'm interested to see what happens there. But I'm just wondering how overly relevant it is, or if this is just giving a storyline to a character for the sake of it with no end payoff, if that makes sense. Because they built up this Joe storyline, and I think we thought it was going to be about something different. I'm sort of happy what it is at the moment, but I want to see how it ends, and I'm not too sure how it ends. I don't see how it ends in a way which I think it's overly relevant to the season, but that's for us to wait and find out. But yeah, Barry shows up at the end, just says hello. It's another awkward ending like the beginning was. I didn't really like Barry in this episode. Thought it was really silly. But we have the end scene, which I thought was going to be Godspeed related because Godspeed's in next episode, but instead it's Frost hunting down Chilblain, who had been sent back to prison, but now we learn has been set free legally, and is even like the front page of the newspaper. I don't know, would he be the front page of the newspaper? Like, I don't know if Chilblain would. He seems like he'd be like a page 9 or something like that. Anyway, I don't know. He was on the front page of the newspaper, so he's out. I saw in the trailer, I only sort of skimmed the trailer like when it was on. I didn't really watch all of it, but I noticed like it was him and Frost, and so it seems like they're teaming up. Not too sure where they're going down with that storyline, or where it once again leads, similar to some other storylines in this season, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But overall, this episode just felt like it was just really, I think the term to use is like misguided. I don't know why they thought this was the episode to not have Barry in. As I said, last week would have been the perfect episode to not have Barry in. Not too sure why it was this episode. We've already had an episode this season where there was no Barry, which was the Cisco and Chester episode, which was a great episode, and it served the purpose for Barry not to be there because he wasn't shouldn't have been involved with the main focus. This episode he should have been, so I don't know why they made this decision. They tried to make Sue like Barry, and as I wrote on Twitter, if you follow me, I like Sue as a character, but she's not Barry, and they tried really hard to make her that Barry character for this episode, or that fill-in for the Flash, and it just didn't work. So this episode just felt like, I thought it was made fairly well, like in regards to outside of the script. That's pretty much what it is. Outside of the script and the actual premise for the episode, I thought it was done fairly well. It wasn't poorly acted or anything like that. If anything, it was actually probably above average in regards to that acting side of things. But just the actual premise and who was in the episode and the story decisions and stuff like that, and unfortunately didn't work. The positive from this is that next week we start this Godspeed storyline, which is, so we're going to have 4 episodes of Bang Bang Bang. In, you know, episode 17, the 150th episode, Impulse is coming in. So it's going to be bang, 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 which is the positive. But I think they've left on a bit of a negative and whimper heading into that really cool end of the season. So it's disappointing to see. And even though Allegra's not my favorite character, I think she deserved a better episode for developing her character. She deserved the Flash to be in her episode. And unfortunately, he wasn't. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Sorry for being like negative, but like, you know, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to be like overly negative for the sake of it, like some people are, but I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. So unfortunately, that's what this episode was. But if you've enjoyed the episode, you enjoyed my honesty, be awesome. Go drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on the episode. Were you disappointed with it as I was? And yeah, just let me know your various opinions down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.